The shift in center of global power is escalating with a strong push being made to ensure all oil and international commodities are traded in Chinese dollars or yuan and not Kazarian so-called US dollars, multiple sources agree. All the US dollars will have the Chinese person's signature on them by 2018, according to a special envoy sent to the White Dragon Society by Chinese royals based in Beijing. He promised to send a photograph of these dollars to this newspaper after he returns to China. As a part of this push, Chinese President Xi Jinping visits Saudi Arabia, Egypt, and Iran to promise a huge industrial infrastructure development carrot if Middle Eastern oil was sold in yuan, Pentagon sources said. The Chinese were too polite to mention the stake that was the alternative to this carrot. However, news reports coming out after Xi's visit to Saudi Arabia indicated Xi was furious at being snubbed by Saudi Crown Prince Mohammed bin Nayef. Instead, he was only able to see Sunai King Salman and his son, the Deputy Crown Prince. Nayef has long been close to the Americans and is deeply involved in ISIS and other such matters, CIA officials say. To see how much things have changed in the U.S. for Saudi Arabia, watch the following 6-minute Congress hearing featuring Congressman Hank Johnson getting recently retired U.S. Ambassador to Syria Robert Fulford to admit Saudi Arabia is the main sponsor of radical Wahhabism. The Saudis are now in surrender mode and are just waiting for higher-level fights to conclude before they kiss the feet of the winner, White Dragon Society sources say. Pentagon sources were more forthcoming, explaining that the problem had now been traced to Turkey, Germany, and of course, the Bush-Clinton neo-Nazi Khazarian faction in the U.S. For this reason, the U.S. military got presidential spokesperson Barack Obama to call Russia Vladimir Putin on January the 13th. In that conference, the Pentagon and Russia agreed to increase military-to-military relation beyond the fight against ISIS in Syria and make it once against the Khazarian mafia worldwide. Defense Intelligence Agency Chief General Mike Flynn is now a back channel for communications between Russian military chief of staff Valery Gerasimov and General Jose Dunford, the de facto U.S. commander-in-chief. With the backing of the Russian and Chinese military, as well as the Pentagon, the overwhelmingly strongest military force on the planet, Dunford then met last week with the heads of NATO in Brussels to tell them that Turkish President Recep Erdogan and German Chancellor Angela Merkel would have to go because of their involvement in creating the ongoing European refugee crisis, among other things. Pentagon sources also blame the Khazarian mafia and the Turkish surrogates on the death of 12 Marines in Hawaii on January the 14th. The payback against Turkey will involve a bloody coup as well as the attacks on Turkish infrastructure and overseas bases in Georgia, Qatar, and Somalia. General Dunford further met with his French counterparts last week to coordinate an attack against Khazarian proxies in Libya. The French military are also being asked to join the battle against the Khazarian mafia, which they have agreed to do. Meanwhile, the Khazarian mafia and their agents are struggling to keep the financial control matrix from falling apart. Japanese Yakuza gangster and Iranian government sources say the Khazarian mafia is trading Persian royal family gold kept in Thailand for drug money that is being shut down of Western banks. Certain Iranians will then launder the drug dollars now that the financial sanctions against Iran have been lifted. The original Iran-Contra scandal involving George Bush and his gang says a good guess the same people are at it again. The Japanese emperor is also supposed to flying to Philippines this week, ostensibly to celebrate the normalization of relations between Japan and the Philippines. However, given the Khazarian mafia's desperation for gold, it's a good guess the Japanese emperor will be looking for gold to back the Japanese yen. Japanese historian Tsunobu Guji, in a soon-to-be-published book, says the emperor's grandfather, the Meiji emperor, was Toranosuke Omaru, a person of non-emperor blood selected for the role of emperor by the Iwasaki family of Choshu clan. The Choshu clan was the Rothschild family's instrument for the takeover of Japan. The Iwasakis are the family behind the Mitsubishi Group that installed Prime Minister Shinzo Abe in power. The Mitsubishi Group is also the main Rockefeller proxy in Japan. The Rockefellers took over as the main Khazarian handlers of Japan after World War II. Japanese news reports say Abe has recently had to increase medication for his mysterious intestinal illness. Meanwhile, in the US, the attack on Khazarian mafia Ru continues to accelerate with the ongoing takedown of Hillary Clinton and other Khazarian mob pseudo-politicians. As a Pentagon source put it, Hillary is toast with 100 FBI agents plus another 50 retired agents on her case. A special prosecutor is being appointed to charge her with treason, espionage, and using the Clinton Foundation to run a shadow government, the source said. To help prepare the U.S. public for the takedown of Hillary, Neocon General David Petraeus will soon be demoted for selling U.S. state secrets to Israel, multiple sources say. There was also a remarkable break in the Khazarian media life factory last week when the widely read news site Drudge Report had run an opinion poll about the upcoming U.S. presidential election that had over 1 million respondents. According to this poll, support for Clinton was about 1.88% and support for Jeb Bush was about 1.9%. Donald Trump had 36% in the same poll. By contrast, Khazarian mob-controlled media outlets like the New York Times says Clinton has 48% support, while Bush runs at over 10%. The attack on world stock markets, meanwhile, has taken a pause but is expected to continue as part of the campaign to remove the main pillar of Khazarian mafia power, the control of stock markets via foundations. What it shows the US, England, Japan, and Europe are huge, while military and commodity superpower Russia is just a small smudge. In China, now by far the world's biggest economy, they produce 11 times more steel than the US and use more concrete in the past 3 years than the US did during the 20th century. It's tiny. The Khazarians use inflated stock price valuations to launder their money into the real economy. That is why they are so desperately trying now to use stock markets. However, stock markets are so out of whack with the underlying reality that any artificial attempts to boost markets will be doomed to fall. Indications of the real economy, like the Baltic Dry Index, the price of shipping, continue to reach record lows. In Europe, the Italian banking sector is falling, leading to widespread expectations Italy will be the next Greece. However, Italy's GDP of $21.44 trillion is 10 times larger than Greece, so this will be more like the next Greece 10 times. Then France also declared an economic emergency last week, meaning the real European crisis is just starting. That is the background to a meeting IMF Director Christine Lagarde had on January 13 with Pope Francis. At this meeting, according to U.S. military intelligence, Pope Francis agreed to transfer Vatican assets for a global debt jubilee and then retired. The IMF will continue to exist but only be an advisory role since it will not have the power to create and distribute money, a source at the Asian Development Bank say. CAA sources, meanwhile, sent this writer emails last week saying Khazarian rule will end within a month. Many such predictions have come and gone without anything happening, but a cursory look at the world's news, both on the internet and in corporate media, made it clear something very big is coming down.